Welcome back to the Painted Peach. Today we are doing 3 winter DIYs as a part of the Welcome Winter First of the Month playlist hosted by Rustic and Lace DIY and Krista's Crafty Life. Check out the link in my description for the playlist. Here is DIY number 1. I have these houses that I got on clearance and we're just removing that wreath. And we're going to use one of these houses today. I'm going to sand off all that glitter and I'll use one of the other houses on another project. So I'm getting out some white paint, chalk paint, and we're going to cover this whole house with white, front and back. I'm going to be using a chalk couture stencil over there for parts of my church. We're going to do a church. Of course, that church stencil does not fit this house, so I'm going to actually use the door and the windows and the top piece off of it. I will be cutting my own steeple and adding that to the top of this surface. Right now I'm trying to get that sticker off the back, and then we're going to paint the whole back as well. Once we get it good and dry, I'm going to take that stencil and put it right down to the bottom of my surface, and we are going to chalk with gray that door onto my little house. I then remove it and make sure it's good and dry, and then I have a little piece that has a door handle and some bars. I end up moving those bars over, so I paint over them and redo them a couple times to make them fit this project. Then I take my stencil and get those windows that are on the bottom of the church, and I add them up a little higher. I add 2, and then I add 1. Sorry about my big head. I add 1 in the middle also. I also get some of those rustic lines that are on there along with it, and I don't mind that. I think it adds a little bit to our church. And then I paint the top of the roof with a little bit of gray chalk paste that matches what I'm using on the rest of the church. Then I grab a bunch of different colors, some primary colors, and we are going to paint in these windows with different colors. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my glass and water down these chalk pastes and just kind of watercolor with them in the windows so that it looks like church windows with the different colors. I do end up adding another color in because I needed one more color, so I had red, blue, green, yellow, and then I get a purple that kind of looks like blue once it gets on there. This purple had a bit of a shimmer in it, so I didn't water it down like I did the others because it would not show up. It would just water it too much. I also did the little window on the door with all the colors, and I think it looks super adorable. Now I'm grabbing the little pieces that go with the church stencil, and it's a little box and greenery, so I just use the gray to create the boxes, and then I get the greenery and I used green to make a little shrub in there. I used a bit of a darker green. I didn't want that lime green color so that it looked more like real greenery. Once I did that, I then decided I needed to go over and cut a piece for my steeple. So I took that stencil and I just stenciled it onto a piece of wood, cut it out, and then painted over it with white. And then we're just going to stencil that right back on there so that we have the steeple that we can glue up to the top. I use that same gray chalk paste to do that part. And then I just get some quick and thick multi-purpose glue and I add that steeple right behind the top of the roof line. I do end up having to sand some of the chalk paste off because there's a tendency of it not sticking as well if there's chalk paste on there before I add the glue. And then we have a steeple at the top of our little church. Now I'm getting out some popsicle sticks and I'm creating the cross for the top of the steeple. I did use the stencil just to see what size I needed, and then I just used some scissors to cut the little popsicle sticks into the shape that I needed for my cross. I'm sorry I'm out of camera for that a little bit, but you get the point of making a cross with some popsicle sticks, I'm sure. I don't end up using that stencil on there. I just paint it completely gray like the rest of the church, and then I just glue it onto the top as well. Then I grab that wreath that I took off of the house in the beginning and I add that right above the door in between the two windows, and we make this a little holiday themed winter church. I'm going and making sure that I have my gray around where I need it. I'm kind of framing out my church a bit and adding a little bit to the bottom just to give it a little bit of a rustic look. And then we are going to add some snow. I add snow with spackle. Oh, first I'm going to add a little bit more lines from the stencil just to, make it a little bit more rustic also. So I'm just using spackle with a popsicle stick and I'm adding it to the windows like there's a seal there, and then I'm adding some to the bushes so that it looks like it has been snowed on. And then of course I'm going to add it up on the roof and the steeple and all of that. Using spackle is my go-to. It hardens really good and stays on your project. You can add a little bit of baking soda in there to give it a little bit of a different texture, but this time I'm just using straight spackle right onto the church. Also adding some at the bottom so it looks like there's snow on the ground, and I put some on the wreath as well. Stick around for the final reveal to see the church. Here's DIY number 2. I have these chalk couture snowflakes. I'm just using my sander to make them a little bit more rustic and not so white and bright. And this is going to be a super quick and simple project. I'm just going to use a stencil to make them a little bit more wintry. It's a pattern stencil with some winter background. So we're going to use an icy blue color to put on these snowflakes, and I really like how they turn out. All right, here is the stencil. It's got trees and cabins and deer, and it even has Santa Claus, but I'll try not to put that on there since this is a winter craft. But I try to get it lined up so that I get a deer on there and a couple different things, and then I use this shimmer paste to go over the pattern. I keep my stencil on my backer and just stick the snowflake in there so that it doesn't stick to everything else on my table. Now I'm doing the same thing with the big one, just lining it up where I want it. I'm going to try to get that cabin in the center, and we're going to use the same blue to go over that. And voila. Now I'm going to make sure those are good and dry, and we're going to turn them over and use a champagne color on the other side with the same pattern. That way you can turn them if you want blue or if you want champagne, and you can have a two-sided versatile shelf sitter for the winter. This side is a little bit more distressed also. I'm doing them both at the same time, and I just want to get that center with a cute little cabin or whatever in there. This little one, I accidentally turn it the wrong way, so it's not going the right way when it's sitting, so I may have to redo that one. But I do like the way they end up turning out, and I love the champagne on them. And there they are, all finished up. All right, let's go on to DIY number 3. We'll see those snowflakes in the final reveal. This is a wood cutout I've had for a while for this stencil, and it is a Redbird. I've made a few other projects with this. I did a very pretty door hanger with birch trees that I loved. I need to make another one of those, but I did sell that one. Here I added way too much black paint, so you see I put some of it off onto my table, but I just painted the whole thing with black matte paint, and then we're just gonna put our stencil on our surface, and then I'm gonna use some more of a burgundy shimmery kind of color for our Redbird. And we also have a green and a copper and an orange that we're going to use, and then a shimmer white for the eye. While we do this, I want to take the opportunity to remind you to check out the playlist. The link is in my description, as well as the tags for each of the hosts. All right, we are adding our shimmer burgundy color. I can't remember exactly the color of that, but and then I'm using my finger just to add the color to the beak and the feet, and then I'm also going to add it to the branch. I couldn't think of that word. We get a color from Magnolia to do the green on the pine needles. I believe that's what that is, and it's the perfect green. I think it stands out beautifully on that black. I accidentally get some green on my branch, so I end up having to add that over in the end with a little bit of the copper paste. I'm just putting that eye on there, and then I'm just going to do a few touch-ups to fix the colors where I kind of blended the wrong ones. I really love how this turned out. It looks really painted. I've always loved this stencil. All right, I've had this sled for a while. It had some greenery on there I needed to pop off. So I just pulled that greenery off, and we're gonna add this Redbird to the top of it. Now I know this isn't proportioned correctly, but we're gonna pretend like it is, and we're going to glue this Redbird to the top as if he's sitting on the greenery we added to the top. So I'm just using some Titebond Quick and Thick glue, and then we're gonna get our spackle out, and we're gonna add snow to the sled and the greenery and the Redbird a little. I thought this was a perfect addition to winter crafts because the Redbird is known for the winter, and then of course the sled, and then all this nice fake snow that we're adding on here. All right, it's time for the final reveal. Here is our rustic winter church. I love how it turned out. I love the stained glass windows and the little wreath and the little greenery boxes. Here is one side of our snowflake, and there's the other. And then here is our Redbird, baby it's cold outside, winter sled. I hope that you enjoyed watching this. Remember, this is Welcome Winter First of the Month, hosted by Rustic and Lace and Krista's Crafty Life. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe and that bell, and as always, stay peachy.